Hello and welcome to MC Tech Talk with Betsy and Kit. With all the technology we use in education, we thought it would be a great idea to share some tech tidbits and hacks that will help make your use of technology more efficient and meaningful.
You can find all of our episodes on our YouTube channel, MC Tech Talk, so make sure to like and subscribe. We'll be sharing our screens during the session as we walk you through the different tools. So if you're listening on the go, you can go back and view the recording to see what's going on.
Without further ado, let's jump into today's topic. Hello, MC Tech Talk friends. This is Kit
And Betsy.
Coming at you from the Monroe County ISD. Thank you so much for joining us today.
On today's episode, we're talking about all things Google and how you can use Google Apps in your work. We'll be doing a basic overview of the apps, as well as how you can share them out with colleagues and or students. But stay tuned for future episodes where we will go much more in depth on each of the apps.
Hopefully, though, today you walk away from this episode with a better understanding of Google Workspace, specifically how to access it, and the most commonly used elements in there like Google Docs, Slides, and Sheets. So without further ado, let's dive in.
So Google is a very large topic, and we're just going to scratch the surface today.
Yeah, we're just going to tickle the googs today.
So Google has given us a way to connect online, to get to the web, and has given us access to all of these wonderful Google applications that are out there.
So when Google released Google Chrome, it quickly became one of the most popular web browsers out there. And if I had to guess, I'd say that it probably is still the most popular,
commonly used.
Because
just Google it.
Because it's a verb. Yeah. So Google has come really far since then, and it has turned into this multi-platform workspace.
Anybody can sign up for a Google account. So I know a lot of us use accounts that have been created by our employers, but we can sign up for a personal account. There's a lot of people out there that have that at gmail.com. Mm-hmm. So when someone goes to look for an email provider or wants to set up an email, they can go to Google, set up their Google email, but I don't think that they realize that when they do that, they're actually creating a Google account where now they're having access to Google Drive and all of these Google apps such as Drive and Calendar, Docs, and Sheets that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, that's another one where that waffle has all of these apps inside of it. And yeah, so when you're signing up there and you're just thinking I'm here for email, you might not be paying attention to the waffle and all of the things that that's going to give you. So Betsy was saying, there's personal accounts, but there are also with Google, there are work accounts, there are school accounts. Schools in particular do have a Google workspace that's built for education. And another way that this is kind of set up for us as employees often. You might find that that your district has access to some of the Google applications, but these can be turned off or on by your administration there on the back end. So for example, here at the ISD, our user accounts are set up with Microsoft. So everything I use to log into everything that's my Microsoft account for work here. But in the background, it's connected to a Google account. So I use Microsoft Outlook for my email, and I do not have access to a Gmail here through my work account.
Right. That's turned off by our admin because we're strictly using Microsoft Outlook for our email.
Correct. So it's not even an option for me. But I do have access to all of those Google applications, or many of those Google applications then that come with that Google account that I'm using. So you might find that this is the case as well with in your local school district as well, because that admin then is going to be able to decide kind of what you're going to have access to in that Google or not. So once you do kind of get set up with a Google account, you can log into your Google account from any kind of device. We log in a lot with Chromebooks, from a Mac, from a PC.
Yep. And when you're using a Chromebook, you're logging in with your Google account into that Chromebook. So you are now connected to all of your applications, your Chrome browser, all with your Google account. The Chromebook does limit you to the apps that are on it. So it's not quite as open as a PC or Mac that you might be using. But the Chrome browser will give you some more functionality. And you can also save and download files on the Chromebook too. You don't have to have a Google Chrome to get to your Google account either. You can use Microsoft Edge, Firefox, Safari, whatever your browser is. You just go to google.com, log into your account, and you will still have access to everything. So a Google Chrome browser is not required in order to access Google.
Yeah, I know that I also have my Google account that is on the back end set up here at work for me. I have that downloaded on my phone. I have my Google apps on my phone. So Google Drive, Google Sheets, Docs, those are all actually downloaded onto my iPhone. And that's pretty seamless for me to be able to, again, like kind of work wherever I want to in that Google space because it's all up there on the cloud.
Yep. So sometimes I'll jump into my Google Drive on my phone and be able to find those files that I'm looking for, be able to edit docs and sheets
Yeah.
in my phone.
Yeah. And it saved my butt a lot because, yeah, like taking real time attendance or something like that, like pulling up that roster, that I wasn't able to print out in time, that kind of thing. So yeah, having that kind of access and that kind of access to that workspace that's up there in that cloud is very helpful.
But right now we're going to open Google Chrome.
So
Yeah.
Google Chrome is Google's web browser. It allows you to get on the internet, and just like we talked in Microsoft Edge, there's bookmarking and searching and all of these things that you can do right within your Chrome browser. But just to get you started, so we do have my screen there. If you are watching, if you're listening, you can go back and check it out later to see what we're doing. But in the upper right hand corner of your whole entire browser, you'll notice my picture up here. So I am actually logged into the browser itself.
Mm-hmm.
And when I click on my little picture, you'll see that I have some other accounts there as well. So you can log in with different Google accounts on your Chrome browser. And that's a nice feature because it will let you sync your bookmarks. So if I go to the library, for instance, and I open up Google Chrome and I need some of my personal bookmarks that I have saved, then I can go in, log into my Google account and sync it, and it'll pull up all those bookmarks that I need. So these are bookmarks that I have saved. And then if you follow the page down, we get into some quick links, so Gmail and images, and then what we call the Google waffle. So it looks like a waffle, so that's why we call it the Google waffle. But if you click on that waffle, that will take you into some of the other Google apps that we have access to. So you can actually type in your search two different places. So this bar up here at the very top, where your URLs go, that actually has a fancy name. It's called the Omnibox. And you can you can type in what you're searching there, but you can also use the search bar that's located in the middle of the screen. So if we do just a quick search on Earth Day and we hit enter, obviously we're going to come up with a bazillion hits. So how do we go about filtering that out and trying to make a better search for
Like
what
I
our
wanna
end goal
find.
is?
Yeah.
Right. So at the very top of the screen, after you do a search under the search bar, you will see where it says images, videos, news, and so on. So there's a bunch of different things that will help you guide your search.
Yeah, it's almost like a filter through which you're gonna look at your search. Like, am I looking for images? Am I looking for videos? Am I looking for news? Am I looking for scholarly articles, like things like that?
So if I go ahead and click on images, so if I'm specifically looking for images for something, it'll bring up all of the images. It also will filter these out a little better too if you're looking for something for a poster or a clip art or animation or anything like that. So you can click on those. But what I do want to point out is there's this tools option underneath the search bar to the right hand side. And when I click on tools, that gives me some additional searching tools where I can do a further filter of what I'm looking for. So if you're looking for a picture that's a particular size or a color, we could do type of picture. We could do the time when it was uploaded. So if you're looking for something that's really recent, like in the last 24 hours, you can actually narrow your search down by when it was uploaded. And the most important one, I think, especially for education and really anybody because of copyright laws, is this usage rights option. Because we have the ability to filter this search out with a Creative Commons license. So when you filter a search using the Creative Commons license, and I pick one of these pictures, if I select it, it will take me to all of the information that I need. If it's okay to share it, if it's okay to change it, if I have to include an attribution or give credit to the person that created it. So having all of that information when you're using pictures is really important.
Yeah. And especially if this is going to be sort of information that's like shared widely or disseminated and that kind of stuff. Yeah. And it is a really good practice to teach our students about that, about sort of like giving the appropriate credits and using the images that are like appropriate and approved to be
Yes.
used. Yeah. Yep.
Yep. And then likewise, if I go back to my initial search and I click on the videos, I can go back to those tools option and I can actually look for videos that are a certain amount of time. So if you're just looking for a quick video to share with somebody that's between 0 and 4 minutes, you can filter out all those videos that are that short. Or if you're needing a longer 20-minute video, you can click on that option and it'll give you the longer videos. So saves you time.
Yeah, and can you see how these tools and kind of filtering searches will level up your search game, right? Like it really does help you hone in much more precisely.
Instead of trying to fill
Weed
through
through all
those.
of these things. Yeah, here, let me just scroll and
Right.
see. Yeah. So
And we also have this little speaker up here, search by voice. So if you click that, you can just ask it what you want to ask it, and it will type it in for you and search. But we will talk a little bit about the tabs and some of the settings that you can change in here, kind of like we did on Microsoft Edge.
For sure. And there are some terms that we're going to throw at you, right? Like, so we've already talked to you about the waffle, right? And that's that dot grid that's up in the corner there in the upper right next to your sign in. And you also have a little flower that is your settings for. Yes.
Yes, little gear.
Yeah,
I don't
little
care.
gear,
Flower.
little gear,
However you
flower.
want to
Little gear.
look
You're
at
right,
it.
it is gear. But that might give you some little things to change about kind of like how it looks, how it
Customizations.
behaves. Yeah, some customizations. Exactly.
Now, there's settings for the Google, like
Mhm.
where I just was. So in the upper right-hand corner next to the waffle, there's your gear icon. So those are some quick settings where you have your appearance, like your light and dark themes and things like that. But if I close out of that, the Chrome browser itself has its own settings as well. And that would be the Google Snowman that I like to call it because it has the 3 dots. So if I go up to our Google Snowman next to my picture,
All
this
the
will
way up at
give
the
us,
top.
yes, all the way like in the actual Chrome itself next to my Google account. You can see your history, your downloads, your bookmarks. There's a bookmark manager that we'll talk about in a minute. And then you can more tools, and there's some additional settings in there. So we can use our shortcut keys if you are into shortcuts. So we have Control T will actually open a brand new tab. Or we have this little plus sign up here next to our tab that I can click a plus sign and it'll give me a new tab. So if I want to save something, for instance, we'll start talking about our bookmarks here. So let's just go back to Earth Day and we'll find a nice Earth Day website to use here. So we'll go to earthday.org. So once you find a website that you like, in your address bar up at the top or your Omni box, we have that little star there. And so if I click on the star, I can go ahead and add a bookmark. Now, if I delete the name of this, it will leave the icon. So if you are a person that has like a bazillion bookmarks and you're wanting to save space, delete the entire name from the name area and then choose where you want it to go. So I'm just going to put this on my bookmarks bar. And when I click done and go into my bookmarks, all you're going to see is a little icon for that website. So just a way to save some space. If I need to edit that bookmark I just made, I can right click on it and there's an edit option. So if I did want to add a name to this, I could just type the word Earth Day and click save. And when I go back to look at that bookmark, then I can actually see where Earth Day is.
Right. So I've got a bunch of them bookmarked and saved. Now what can I do with them to kind of keep them organized?
So if you're wanting to organize things, so maybe you want a math folder or an
Earth
early
Day folder.
childhood or an Earth Day folder itself, you can actually create a bookmark by right clicking on the bookmarks bar. Go to add folder and we're going to do an Earth Day folder. I'm going to dump some things in there. So I'm going to click on save and that's going to put it on my bookmarks bar. And you can now see that I have an actual Earth Day folder.
Yeah. And it looks like one of those manila folders, right? Yeah.
So then if I click and drag this Earth Day into Earth Day, I now have a folder that has that bookmark in it.
Yep.
So an awesome way to organize your bookmarks.
Really lovely. And again, a nice little throwback to episode 1. Just like in Edge, this one has the same capacity. If I am going to right click on one of my folders, I sure can open every single one of the bookmarks that I have saved in that folder.
So if I right click on, let's say, this Google folder here, you can see I have 45 bookmarks in there.
Let's do it. Open all 45. No, please don't.
Probably
Will
crash my
it
computer.
lag? I know we'll lag.
But I can click on open all 45 and they all 45 will open. But from here, if I right click on that folder, I can rename it. I can cut it, copy it, paste it, delete it. There's a bunch of settings in there that you can change. And it's that easy to delete something too. If you have bookmarks hanging out that you just, I thought I would use, but I don't, just go in and go to delete and it will take it out. And then you can also pin these. I know we talked about that last time on Edge. You can do the same thing, but if you go up to the tab and you right click, you can open tabs to the right. You can add to the reading list, which I'll show you in just a minute. You can even add groups of tabs now if you're needing to group them. Move it to a new window, and then you can pin it. So if you're using a couple tabs that you know you need open and you don't want to accidentally exit out of, or you just want them to stay put, if you click on the pin tab, it'll pin it. And you can just click over to it. It's just like any other tab. It just doesn't have that little X where you can accidentally delete it. Like it makes it real small.
It does.
So it's harder to accidentally delete. But if I do need to unpin that at any time, I just right click and unpin it and it'll come back. And I can delete it if I need to.
And another thing that Betsy's going to talk about here is just the reading list, because that's another way for us to kind of like sort of set aside information that we know we need to return to.
Yep. So this is kind of a newer feature that they've added. But if I right click on this tab up at the very top and I want to add it to the reading list, it's kind of like bookmarking it, but it like Kit said, it moves it off to the right-hand side, like where we've just got a list of things we want to go back to that we don't necessarily want bookmarked. But if you're doing research or you're putting together resources for lessons and things.
I don't need it any other day but right now.
Yeah. Yep. So now once it's in my reading list, I can get to that by going over back. So we talked about the little snowman and the settings and the Google account. Well, it's like this little square side panel that you can open up, and when you click on that, it's going to bring up everything that you put in your reading list. And so you can actually pull up your reading list, your bookmarks, your history, or google.com like in its separate own little panel. So it's kind of cool that you don't have to open up a whole new.
It is, because then it's a browser within a browser. It's very cool. Yeah, it literally is. I just do want to mention again, something kind of relative again to Google Chrome and using a search engine of any kind and that kind of thing are these short keys, right? So you just talked about Control T, right? Yeah. Which short key is when I'm going to use my keyboard and I'm just going to like press 2 buttons real quick or a couple buttons real quick.
A set of buttons.
And it's going to do something that it's designed to do. Yeah, something functional.
And a lot of people use short keys or shortcuts are kind of the two ways that we reference those.
Yeah, I mentioned it again here before we move on too far from Google Chrome, because I can't even tell you the amount of time I have to go up into that web into the address bar, and I'm going to go Control C, and I'm going to copy that web address, and then I'm going to go into some other working document, and I'm going to go Control V, and it's going to paste right in there that web address.
Yep. So if I go up to this Earth Day that I have on my screen right now, if I click inside that, it's going to highlight that entire URL for me. All I have to do is hit my Control C button and then go to a document or anywhere I want to go to, or I could go to a new tab if I want to. And if I hit Control V, that's going to go ahead and paste it in there. And when I hit enter, I can go to that website.
Yep.
Yeah. And how many of you have closed out a tab that you didn't mean to, and you're like, oh, where did that tab go? If you hit Control Shift T, it'll bring up the last tab that you closed. Yes. A very good tip.
Yes, it is a hot
I
tip.
use it all the time. If I do it again, it'll just keep bringing up all of those
all of your history. Yeah, the previous and the previous and the previous. Yep. So we're going back over here to the Google homepage to kind of show you how next we would navigate to a biggie, and this is the Google Drive.
Yes, so this is where everything is stored. So there's a number of ways to get to all of our Google apps. So you can type in your address bar, drive.google.com, and get there. You can also go to your Google Waffle to get there. So if I go to my Google Waffle in the upper right-hand corner, it's the 9 little dots, I can find my Google Drive and I can get there that way. If you are on a Chromebook, it's probably in your files. Go to your little files icon and then Google Drive.
There's usually, like a little icon for it along the bottom there. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
So this is our Google Drive. On the left-hand side of our Google Drive, you'll notice this big plus new button. So when you click on that, that's where you can create different folders to keep things organized. You can upload files. They don't have to be Google. Like you can upload
Yeah.
a Word document, you can
PDF,
upload a PDF,
image,
a video,
anything,
anything. Yes.
anything.
So file uploads, and then you can also do folder uploads. Yes.
Okay. Drive. This is cloud-based storage. This is cloud-based workspace. Okay. So you are up there in the cloud. You are not locally on your machine. You are not on like a network drive like within your organization. You're in the cloud. So that's something to really think about, because that's these documents that are highly shareable. And that's, I think, one of the biggest assets about this Google Drive workspace is sharing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. So once that file is uploaded, even if it's a PDF, it now comes with its own link, because everything in your Google Drive is link based.
Web-based,
Everything has a
yeah.
link. Yeah. So when you upload that PDF, you can now go in and share it with the link, and it's easy to access. But it's not. It now lives in your cloud.
Exactly.
In your Drive. Yep. And then from here, you can also create your docs and your sheets and your slides. There is also a more option where you can create other files.
Yeah.
Yes. So on the left-hand side, underneath that new button that we just talked about, so you have a priority box, you have your drive, which is basically where you pretty much go all the
Yep.
time. And that's where you can organize everything. You have shared drives. Now, this is a huge topic, and we get a lot of questions on the shared drives, because when you create a shared drive, there is not one single owner to that folder or any of those files that you put in there. It is literally owned by the folder and by your organization.
Fully collaborative. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's good, but if you are wanting to share resources outside of that group of you or outside of that organization, it becomes very difficult.
Yeah.
So you really need to think about, how are we using these resources and who do we need to get them to? Because it's going to be difficult to get it outside of the organization.
So it's less public facing. Like a
Yes.
shared drive is less public facing, more internal.
Exactly.
Right? So if I'm going to be using something that's a little bit more whiteboard space, or if I'm using something that's a little bit more brainstormy space, or if I'm like, I might have a drive for that, and the people who I've invited to come collaborate with me will be all of us will all have access to that whole soup there, right? But that's more like for us
Yes.
to be able to brainstorm and work with, and
Yeah.
for us
So
to be
you
able to
got to
share
be
out.
really careful
Yeah.
with those shared drives.
Yeah.
Now, the shared with me, when you click in there, this is literally anything that has been shared with you. Do not try and delete stuff out of here. Do not try and organize this.
Don't try to organize it. So,
ignore it.
Honestly, just ignore it until you have to find that one thing that your boss sent you that one time. You know what I mean? And come
like
in here.
a while ago.
Like a long time ago. Okay, so my sign-up sheet was for this day.
Yeah. So the only time I ever go into my shared drive is if I know I'm looking for a file that has been shared with me, and then I don't look through this. I go to shared with me, and then I go up to this search bar and I look for the person that sent it to me. Or if I know like it had a word in it, I'll search a keyword. Yep. Then I'll type that word in there, and it will help me filter out those files. But don't try and do anything with this.
Don't try to organize it, and definitely don't try to surf through it. Like it's too big of a wave,
it's
y'all.
Mind-boggling. And I will point out, for teachers that are using this, when you share assignments with students, they're going to populate in with shared with me, because you guys are sharing those files back and forth. So they're going to populate in here. So it's just best not to worry about this section. I think
it's a useful thing if you really do have a lot of like Google documents flying around between people and collaborators and that kind of thing, and you're like, okay, I do know that person, or I know that date when that last was, or I know that keyword to find that document. But I want you to think about shared with me as almost like just a search space.
Yes, exactly.
It's almost like a search space to find specifically what you're looking for that someone has shared with you in the past. Yes.
Yep. And the reasons, we're just kind of going down this list on the left side, but the reasons comes next, and it's the same thing. There's no organizing it. There's no deleting stuff. It's just keeping track of everything that you've been to. And so if you're working on something and you know you were just in it a week ago, then go into your recents and scroll down. It tells you, earlier this month, and it'll just keep populating all those recent documents. Anytime you open something, it appears at the top of your recents. So if you were in it yesterday and you have to go back to it, it's the easiest place to find it.
Exactly. So recent is good for that. Recent is good for kind of like taking it very literally. Okay, like I was just in here. Let me go look at this thing that I was like just in. Yeah. Yep.
And then we have our starred, which can be incredibly helpful.
Oh, yeah.
but you don't want to star too much because then you just bog it down with your Google Drive stuff.
Yeah, it's less like the bookmarks. I don't want you to
Yes.
think about it as the same kind of
Yeah.
star as the bookmarks bar is. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So I would only star things that you know you use on a regular basis or that you need to find quickly.
Or a folder where, man, that's the it spot. Like,
Yeah.
you know that one spot is that
You're gonna be
topic's
able to
main
find it.
spot. I need to go in
Mhm.
there all the time. Yeah. So I would
Yep.
star that folder in here. Yeah.
Yep. And we'll show you how to star that in a minute, but just know that use it sparingly
Mhm.
and use it for things that are really important that
Mhm.
you would need. We have our spam section, and then we also have our trash bin. Now, anytime you delete something from your Google Drive, it goes into the trash bin and it will be there for 30 days. So you have 30 days to go back and retrieve it and decide it was something you did not want to delete. After 30 days, it'll be gone. You won't see it anymore.
Yep.
And you can delete stuff out of here. If you want to permanently delete something, you can select those. If you hold shift down, you can select multiple files at once. And if I right click on this, I can delete them forever. And I can also go up to my little trash bin and it'll say remove everything. And you could do that too.
Yep. But again, the My Drive is really your best bet for like how, structure it the way that you want it to look. Like, get your folders in there. You know what I mean? This is the space where really you can kind of like organize your drive and the information that like you've put on there, stuff that you've created and that kind of thing. So,
Yep. And there are some settings in here that you can kind of customize this to what you want it to look like. You'll notice the storage. When you have a Google Workspace account, you get free storage, right? Is that how it works?
yes.
Because if you go into your personal account, you'll notice you get like 5 GB, I think,
Mhm.
of storage, which I think you can buy more, but like that's the standard that you
Mhm.
have. So just know that some places you might have storage limits and some you might not. So that's why.
Yeah.
The searching in Drive is amazing. There's a lot of ways to filter out those searches. So if I go up to search in Drive and I click on this little filter option, I can search by type, owner, keywords, location, or the date you modified it. And a lot of times I have stuff organized in folders, but I don't necessarily remember where I put it. So a lot of times I use the search feature, which is great.
Yeah.
Yep. Then we have our little gear icon. So this is all at the top of your Drive. So if I go into my settings, it'll show you how much space you have or you've used, density, uploads. You can convert uploads to Google Docs editor format if you want to. So it'll do it automatically, or you can turn that off. There's some offline settings. And then the suggested files, if you have those turned on, they appear at the top of your Drive. So it'll try and suggest files that it thinks you might want. If you don't want that up there, you'll notice mine's off because I just think it bogs it down. But I can turn that on and off as I want to. We're going to go back. There's our Google Waffle and our Google account.
Okay.
And then underneath that, there's a show filter toolbar. So if you want to be able to filter things right away.
Yeah, and I want to draw your attention here to those, like particularly these two icons. The filter one is going to basically, like change the filters that are applied. You might have filters applied, and it might be like, why can't I find this thing? Well, because you have a filter applied.
Yeah, I need to go and turn it off.
Yeah. And then
the next one is our list layout. So Google or Microsoft
Windows
Explorer, Windows Explorer,
Yeah.
where it's in a list view. Because I used to be used to that, and then I started using Google, so now I'm used to the grid view. But you're able to toggle that on and off as you want, whatever you prefer. So you get a list or grid.
Yeah. What about organization? Anything fun? Was there anything fun?
Oh, yes. There's always fun stuff in Google. So in each individual folder, so I don't have any files outside of any folders right now because I like it that way. I like everything in a folder. But you'll see that everything's color-coded and everything has emojis. How do we make these cool folders and colors and emojis? So when I go up to the plus new button and I click on new folder, you'll notice that I can give this folder a name. So I'll just go with my standard practice name. So practice folder and create. So it's pretty boring. It's just gray, no fun emojis or anything. If I click on the three dots, so each folder itself has a settings that you can go into, and they've kind of rearranged some of these. So the list isn't quite as long because they've now organized them
Mhm.
in sections.
And there's two ways. You got a little snowman here, like in each folder, right? Like each folder kind of has a little
Yep.
snowman off to the side. You can also right click, right, to pull up that
Yes.
menu. Yeah.
Yep. So you can right click or use the little snowman there. And they've also added them at the top. So if I just click on a folder, I have some quick options up at the top where I can share, download, and move and delete. So if I go ahead and go back to the snowman here, we can open it with certain apps. You can download it, which will then put it onto your device.
Yeah, like that
So it's
whole.
no longer in the cloud now,
Yep.
it's on your device. And you can rename it. If I go into rename, I can change the name, but what I can also do is go grab an emoji from my Joy Pixels Google Chrome extension. Just throw that out there. And I can pick any emoji, click on it to copy it, and it's going to paste it into the name of my folder. Control V to paste,
So joy.
and click OK.
So much
So,
joy. Oh my
boom,
gosh.
there we go.
We love it.
Now I will say, when you add emojis, they put them to the front and they alphabetize it by name. Pretty typical. So go back to the snowman there, and we can share this. We're going to talk about sharing in just a minute. We can organize, which lets us add shortcuts, add it to the start folders or start section that we were talking about earlier. So if I click on add to start, it's going to put it in there as a whole folder. And then we can also change the color of it.
That's my
So
favorite.
just
All of mine are all color coded.
orange. Yes. So go back to the settings there. You can get the file information. So it'll give you details, who owns it, when it was created, when it was modified. And then you can also search within that folder too. And this is where you would delete. So just going down that list of settings, you can delete it out of your drive. So let's go to share. So you can go to share and you can go to copy link. So as we mentioned earlier, everything you put in your drive is all link based. Everything has a link with it. So I can copy and paste that link to share it out, or I can actually go into my share settings. When I go into the shared settings, one way that I can share is by typing in somebody's email. And when I do that, I can make them a viewer, a commenter, or an editor. So if they're a viewer, it's exactly that. They can view whatever you're sharing with them. If you make them a commenter, they can comment it. And editor is where they have all of the ability that you do as the owner. They can edit, change, add, organize anything in that folder. And it's really important.
Very important.
Yeah.
Yes.
How am I sharing it? What am I giving them access to?
What do I want them to be able to do with this thing that we've made here? Yeah.
Yep. And then Google's also added add an expiration. So if you're working on a project, but you know that come the end of the month, you don't need them to have access to that folder or that file. If you click on add expiration, you can actually put a date and time in there, and they will no longer be able to access it after that date. So it's kind of a neat feature.
And another thing here, then within the window that pops up when we go to share something like this, is you get a radio button that you can click or unclick that is going to email them to notify them that this thing has been shared with them. Good practice is to have it on because you
Yes.
do want to let them know. You want to give them a heads up that, boop, I shared this with you.
Because that will generate an email to them and say, hey, this has been shared with
Automatically.
you.
You don't have to do anything then on the back end. Yeah.
And they can click on, there's a button there that they can click on and they can access it.
Yeah. So it really is like Googs takes care of that work for you. Like once you share it with them, like Googs has delivered it for you. Yeah.
Yeah. And if it's not checked, they actually have to go into their drive, into the shared with me section to find it.
And like search for it. Yeah. So good practice, really. Keep that button kind of clicked that says notify.
And when
people.
you do notify them, you can leave them a message. Hey, check out this folder, or this is where
this at.
exactly. Yeah. This is where we're going to put all of our resources at. And then you can send that out to them.
Last thing in this window, then you'll see in the lower left is an actual link. And the link is the web address for this thing that you're sharing. Yeah, this file, this folder, whatever it is. And so that link icon will just kind of copy it to your clipboard. Yep.
So now the other way to share it, if you're wanting to give more broad access to it and maybe not just have specific people on it, underneath that it says general access. So right now it's restricted. So the only people whose email is on this folder or that file that you're sharing will have access to it.
Yeah, it's restricted to the participants that I've added to this thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And underneath that, then the next option is the organization, your domain name. So, if you're out at a local district, it would be their district name.
For us, it's the Monroe County ISD. Yep.
And then the most open one would be anyone with the link.
And that's public facing. That's if you're going to be like, right? I mean, I feel like that's the most public facing option there.
Yeah. And when you choose that, no matter what your option is, if it's your domain or anyone with the link, you have additional permissions that you can give them. So anyone with the link can view it. They can comment on it or they can edit it.
Mhm.
And again, you need to double check those permissions.
Mhm.
If you don't want them to change anything, make sure you've got it set to
Yeah,
viewer.
it's just like trying to turn that into a conscious practice of sharing. Like, how am I sharing? You know?
And you can change this. So if you're collaborating with a group of people or you're running a session or you're with your students and you're wanting them to edit, you can set it to edit and share the link. But when you're done, you
Mhm.
can go in and put it as a viewer and they'll lose access to editing
That's a
rights.
really good point too. Yeah, because whoever the owner of the document, basically, let's say you're working in a document, the owner of the document then can come back around and kind of like change those
Yeah,
permissions after the fact.
it's
Yeah.
stuck. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then underneath that, so once you have all of your permissions, just go to copy link. It'll copy that link and you can paste it into an email, into a learning management system, into however you're communicating, into a message or whatever. So you can share it that way.
To get information out there. So
It's made it really accessible and easy to work.
with other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, yeah. So kind of moving on a little bit, we're going to talk about Google Docs, which is a really, really common one here to use through the drive.
Now I'm going to show you 4 different ways to get to a Google Doc. So you can type in docs.google.com.
Say
So
it
that's
fast.
one
Say
way.
it fast.
Docs.google.com into the URL bar.
Oh, her eyebrows. Oh, she's like with
It's
these.
okay.
Kid, go ahead and watch.
So that will take you to Google Docs. A second way is if you're wanting to open up a brand new doc, you can type, is it docs.new will open up a brand new document. You can go from the Google Waffle or you can go from your Google Drive. So 4 different ways there that you can actually access Google Docs. So when you get there, we have our docs open right now on my screen. We can start a brand new blank document using the plus sign, but they also have pre-made templates
Yeah.
in here. And
Yeah.
you can search for them. You can do Google searches for templates.
Yeah, and don't sleep on the template either,
Yeah.
right? Because like if you're looking for something specifically, like a newsletter, like
Yeah.
a, you know,
Resumes,
anything,
newsletters,
yeah,
essays, reports.
yeah.
It goes on and on. So if I go to the template gallery, now I'm not going to say they're always the best, but they're
It gives
there.
you
It's a starting
It gives you a
point.
place to start from. Like it
Exactly.
just, yeah, it's almost like just a platform to build off of.
Yep. So if you do find one you like, you just click on it and it'll copy a new one for you, and then you'll be ready to start. So yeah, letters, resumes, personal, work, all different templates in here. So definitely check that out before you,
For real.
yeah, if you're doing something specific. So we're gonna go with the plus button. And Google Docs is a word processor. It's just like Microsoft Word. So when you open up a Google Doc, up in the upper left-hand corner, always name your documents with something so they don't get lost, because otherwise your Google Drive will end up with untitled documents all over the
Right
place.
away, for real, because it actually it's just going to stay. It's going to default to untitled document. It's going to stay untitled document. So get up there in the upper left-hand corner, lickety split, and just go ahead and type yourself a title.
Yep. And then next to your title is your star. So that will put it into your starred section of your Google Drive. You can move this into a folder. So you created your docs, but you know that you created it for something specific. So you want to put it into that folder. So use that little folder icon. And then the little cloud just lets you know that it's saving as you work. So you don't have to worry about losing that work. So we're going to go ahead and keep moving to the right of our screen. So we're moving left to right here. This is where we can comment. So that's an awesome collaboration feature when you're working on a document together, that you can comment, reply, and kind of keep track of what you're doing, pose questions, leave emojis, leave what do you call, like when you like stuff, like reactions, you can leave reactions and things.
Yeah.
And then we have our Meet button. So you can actually start a Google Meet right from your Google Docs. You can start a new meeting or use a meeting code to get in, and it will link that document to that meeting. Then we have our big share button, and these permissions are all the same as when we talked about sharing the folder. So you can actually add people to the file, give them editing rights or viewing rights, or you can go down and change it to your domain or to anyone with the link. And then do you want them to view it, edit it, or just be able to comment? Maybe you want them to be commenting, but you're not wanting them to change the actual document itself. So those are all very similar. And they've done a lot to build in some pretty cool features in Google Docs. There's a lot of accessibility tools, being able to do speech to text, text to speech. Like there's all of those things are built into here. And then they've also added these building blocks. So you can actually start meeting notes. You can do email drafts in here. You can do review trackers, project product roadmaps. So these are all found in the insert menu under building blocks is where that is. So if I did a product roadmap, it'll literally start me with a table that's already pre-made.
Yeah.
And it's customizable. So you can
Yeah.
go in and customize the way you want to. Google Docs has actually added watermarks. You
Mhm.
can add watermarks where you can put the word draft
Mhm.
on every page and then take it out when you're ready.
Hi, Andrea.
That's
Yes.
Yeah.
But
The drop down menus.
the
They've
drop-down
recently
menu.
added drop down menus. So if you're doing some kind of an assignment and you're wanting students to pick words in a paragraph, you can actually do that and color code them so it's easier to grade. So I'm just gonna throw that out there. But let's see if we
so
do
happy right now.
yes, if we do if we do a drop down, let's say places to go, you can actually list different places. So library.
So it just pops up this window automatically, like as soon as you tell it, hey, I want you to insert this thing here. And then these fields are just pretty self-explanatory, right? You're just gonna
Yep.
go through and you're gonna like type in each of the items or elements that you want in your drop down. You're going to color code them. You're just going to, nerd out to your heart's content.
Yes.
And then right here inside of this document is this awesome little drop down tool, highly engaging element of this. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're putting in a YouTube video, so if I run out to YouTube and grab a link real quick, it's really cool. It's made it a little bit more fancier when you're linking stuff into Google Docs now. So we'll stick with our Earth Day theme because that's what we started with today. So we'll just keep going with that. But if I find an Earth Day video that I want to link into here, I can come out here. I can copy and paste, Control C to copy and Control V to paste into our document. It'll say, do you want to replace with, and it'll give the link with the name of the video you're sharing.
Yeah.
So now when you click on this, it'll give you the picture of what it looks like. Yeah, a little preview.
A pop-up preview.
And then they can go and watch that video.
Yeah. Can we do another link too? Can you go insert link? Because I want to show somebody to, or I want to show our listeners. If you insert link, and this is pretty common across the board, you can type in what you want it to say.
Yeah.
So just type in like this link in all caps, or click here, or something. And then you have your URL that you put in underneath it.
Yeah, so you don't have all these long URLs
yada,
messing up your
yada.
page.
Yeah,
it's really nice and clean, and
exactly.
it turns it blue and underlines it so you can see that it's a
link.
hyperlink.
This is a hyperlink. Yeah.
Yep. So if I click on that, I can see where it's going to go.
Yep.
So different ways to hyperlink within your documents, and then adding images, then some formatting options. They also added checkboxes, so you can actually make a checklist in Google Docs and check it off as you go. So in the upper toolbar area next to the bullet points is where this is located, and they've actually added two: one where it crosses the word off, and one where it doesn't. So if I choose one of those checklists, I can make my task list. And then as I complete those, I can check them off. Format Painter. A lot of people don't realize what the Format Painter is. So if you are going through editing your pages and you've got all these different headings throughout your page and you're wanting the headings to be the same font, color, like you want the formatting to be copy and pasted, all you have to do is change some of your words, pick your font, pick your size, pick your color. And then if I want all my headings to look like that, while my cursor's in the word, I can go up to the little paintbrush in the toolbar and click on it. And when I click on the paintbrush, I just highlight any of those other words.
That's tidy.
Yeah.
Okay.
That I want to have that format
to look just like that.
And it'll copy all that in.
That's very cool.
It's super easy to format stuff when you're doing that.
Yeah.
And if you go under file, you can make a copy of something. So a lot of times, like with my agendas, I'll make a copy of that agenda and then I'll tweak it for the next meeting. Or if you're working with somebody and you want your own copy of it, go in and make a copy and then you've got your own.
Yeah.
Yep. So you can download. You can download it as a PDF, download it as a Microsoft Word document. So some options there when you're putting it onto your device. Renaming, moving it to organize it, adding shortcuts. So if somebody shares something with you, they still own it, but you have access to it. If you create a shortcut in your drive, it's a lot easier to get to. And it'll have this little arrow that shows that it's a shortcut and that you don't own it. Deleting version history, that's handy. And then page setup is where you can do portrait or landscape. You can change the margins. You can also go page lists, which is just one long running document. So
Yeah.
if you're putting images in and you're doing all this stuff that you don't necessarily need to print,
Yeah.
it just keeps it running.
Yeah, and it looks cool because
It does.
yeah.
It makes it bigger. So on my screen, you'll see it. It's the whole page, and I can just keep going down here, and it's just going to keep adding whatever I want to add to it. Google Slides.
Let's do it.
Yep. So slides.new, slides.google.com, open in your Google Drive, or go to the Google Waffle.
Yep.
Those are the 4 different ways that you can access it.
Yep.
So go to the Google Waffle, look for the yellow slides button and click on it. Yep.
So slides.
Template gallery. So just like in Google Docs, we have that option for templates. And then we're going to go ahead and open up a blank one.
But wait, Betsy,
Yes.
what is Google Slides?
Well, it used to be a presentation tool.
You're a presentation tool.
It's so much more than that. Drag and drop activities, collaboration,
Yeah.
newsletters.
But it really is a lot more than that
Mhm.
now. Like it's being used. It's got so much functionality
Yeah.
for these really cool things, especially those like interactives.
Yes,
and,
very
yeah,
much.
Yeah.
Yep. So one thing before we get too far into this, but we do have our themes over on the right that always pops up. So you can import themes, use these themes. But a cool thing is that you can actually go to slides.go, or there's Slides Carnival is another one. Slides Mania is another one too. So they have all these pre-made Google Slides that you can just copy and paste or make copies of and
They're
use.
free. They're free. They're free
Mhm.
templates.
So on my screen, I have Slides Mania pulled up. So if I go to all templates, I can search for all these different presentations that are already pre-made. I just have to go in, make a copy of it, and then add in my information. And then you have the ability to change the layout of your slide. So if you're wanting it to do like a flyer or an infographic or a newsletter, you can make it look like a sheet of paper. So if I go under File and go to Page Setup, I can do a custom page, and I can do that 8.5 by 11 piece of paper.
Yeah. And I think that that's a little bit, this is a little bit of that like misconception that it's not just a presentation tool, you know?
You're not stuck to that typical,
like PowerPoint, like
Yes.
slide.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly. So a lot of the features and a lot of the tools you'll notice are similar to Docs, but it can do a lot more than that. As far as manipulating shapes and ordering and adding text boxes and things like that. So it gives more freedom.
It's
when you're
also a
doing
little
this.
bit more user friendly in the fact that a lot of the functionality and features are kind of like, what do I want to say, drag and drop
Yes.
features. Yeah. Right click features. Yeah.
Yep. So we have our naming the presentation. We have organizing, starring, and then we have our share button. Now, a lot of times, if you're collaborating, more times than not, you're going to share it like with an editing permission if you're wanting them to.
Again, it comes back to intentionality, Betsy,
Mhm.
because like, do I want it? Did I want to give it to my kids and do like my class, and do I want my class to engage with it? Then yeah, they're going to need to be editors. Did I, pull this out here because I need to train off of it today? Well, then I'm
Probably just a
presenter.
viewer.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So just think about how it's going to be used and what it's
Yep.
being used for. So we have our background options. You can do colors, images. You can bring images in here. Obviously, we want to be mindful of images that we're using as a background because
Mhm.
you don't want to distract from what you're doing or, make it not
Difficult to read,
readable
like
for,
illegible.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And then you can reset themes as well. A lot of these are formatting tools that are up at the top here. You have your layouts. So under format, we've got our format tools, our slide. So we can add slides, duplicate slides. It's nice that they put skip slide. So if you need some information in your presentation, but it's not necessarily a slide you want to show, if you skip it, it will skip that slide when you're presenting.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say that skip slide feature is what makes the most amazing choose your own adventure out of
Yes.
a Google slide that you would not imagine. You know what I
Yes.
mean? It's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, choose your own adventures are pretty cool.
Yeah.
Fun activities. Then we have layouts that are pre-built in here, but the awesome thing about this is that you can create your own layouts. So if you are doing drag and drop activities or choose your own adventure stories where you need a background that's not going to move, then you can create your own and use that. So that can be done under what we call View Theme Builder. And this is where you're creating your layouts and your own themes to go into the presentation.
And then basically, like as you add additional slides then to this presentation, they will carry that theme that you've kind of created
Yes.
there. Yeah.
And you can choose that as a layout, just like you would with something that's built in. So anything you put in here, so you can do insert placeholders. So you can put image placeholders, title placeholders. So if you are creating this for students and you're wanting to let them know where they're putting stuff in, those placeholders are really helpful. They do have some really good diagrams in here. The grid diagrams, the hierarchy diagrams. Don't reinvent the wheel. Like Kit
Yeah.
said, like it's all here for you.
It
It's
is.
customizable.
It is. And say, well, I'm going to add a shape. Well, maybe I can put some text inside of my shape.
And that's the nice thing when you create shapes in Google Slides, it's also a text box.
Yeah.
If you double click on
Yeah.
a shape, like I just put a square in, I went up to the insert menu and shape and I put a rectangle. If I double click inside that rectangle, it now becomes a text box. I don't have to do the shape and the text box. So that's the most that we're going to do with Google Slides today. Because there is a lot more that you can do with it. Like I said, infographics, newsletters. You can do
animation.
stop motion animation.
Yeah.
You can do presentations on here, the choose your own adventure stories. But making a presentation here can be so much more fun than just doing one slide after the other.
Especially too, like, and using collaboratively, like thinking about it as like a collaborative tool too, where other people can kind of come in. And I think we're going to talk today now about Google Sheets.
Yep.
So Google Sheets is kind of like it's Excel on the web. You know, it's the same thing where it's all about data organization, manipulation, that kind of thing.
Sorting. Formulas.
And so it is very similar as well to the whole thing that we talked about with Docs versus Word, where Google Sheets versus Excel. You've got a ton of functionality in there that's very similar to what Excel did. It's just not exactly the same.
So when you open up Sheets, so sheets.new, sheets.google.com, Google Waffle, and inside of your drive, going to the new button, you can create them. So we have our template gallery. So we do have some financial data, templates, some personal templates, work templates, project management in there. So things that you can copy and start with so you're not so overwhelmed. And how am I going to make this look presentable? So we're going to go into a blank document. We're not going to spend a lot of times in Sheets just for because of time restraints, but they do have all of the tools that you see in Docs and Slides, but obviously the purpose of it is a little different. It is your spreadsheet with your cells and your rows and your columns and all of that manipulation and data piece.
So, inside of this kind of document, then anything going across that horizontal axis, that is a row, and rows are numbered. Anything on our vertical axis going along is our columns, and our columns are lettered. So again, it's very similar to what you're seeing inside of Excel. And these are cells. Each piece of that is a cell, each square in there, a rectangle in there.
So we can select the entire one by going up to this first box.
Between A and 1.
Between A and 1 on the left side of A, the top of 1. It will select everything. You do have your menu bars, your share button. All of that is the same. You do have the ability to make multiple sheets.
Absolutely. So we have a workbook then instead of like we're going to add multiple sheets into this workbook.
Yes.
Yep.
We have our files. So we've got some print settings, making copies, importing. You can actually import data into here. Some editing, viewing. You can freeze pane. So if you've got a class list here and you're wanting to scroll to the right, you can freeze those names.
I love that you stopped on here because this is one of my I really want to tell them to freeze panes. Yeah. It's really, really helpful because you can freeze either like your top row and maybe that has your heading column and that's okay, I'm going to scroll forever, but I'm going to lose my heading and get confused. Well, freeze panes helps that. Yeah. You can also, it's sophisticated enough where you can kind of like set it so that maybe it's my first column and my first row. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And scroll through your data easily. Again, this insert section is huge. Yep. Just practice putting stuff in. You can do check boxes. You can do the drop downs just like in Google Drive. You can create your pivot tables and your charts.
Graphs, like anything like that. Really
very visual.
Fancy stuff in here. Yeah. Yeah.
Some formatting options. Alternating colors is really helpful. So that just kind of helps you keep your rows separate so you know when the next
yeah.
one's coming. All right, so we're going to go up here and apply to our range. So we'll go from A1 to, I don't know, K50. So tell it the range that you want to apply it to, and then it's automatically done for you. So you don't have to go in individually and change those rows
Yeah.
as you're going.
And it just helps you stay visually organized, I think, a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Conditional formatting. So when something's in a cell, it'll do
Oh,
a
I
specific
love
color.
conditional formatting so much.
It's a good way to make things stand out. Data. So here's your sorting, filtering, tools, extensions. The nice thing about the Google Sheets is that you can connect a Google form to it and put your responses into a Google Sheet to manipulate that data you collected.
But the beautiful thing is that the Googs takes care of that on the back end from the forms. So inside of Google Forms, if you've made a Google form, you export the results from that Google form into a Google Sheet. Automatically,
So-
it generates all of that. It populates all the data from your Google form. It's a beautiful thing.
Yep. So if I pop over into a Google form and I go under my responses, it says link to sheets.
Mhm.
And when I link it to a sheet, it's going to create a sheet for me with everything that's been submitted on that
Yeah.
form. So you can go in and you can filter stuff out, you can organize your data, you can
I'm going to give you an example. Yeah, we use the Google Forms for registration for some things that we do, like out in the community events and that kind of thing. And I just can't even tell you how useful it is. So let's say I've got this registration form for playgroup, and I have 50 some families something have signed up. I'm going to link it to Sheets, and then I'm going to just open my Google Sheets, and that all of that information is just right in there, and I can kind of like, again, like Betsy was saying, I can filter by day of the week. I can control F. And I can find, a specific email address that I'm looking for this parent, or a phone number that I'm looking for them. I can hit Control G, and I can hop right to this kid's name, because I'm like, oh, which group were they in? Control G. Here's the kid's name. Boom, I'm there, and I figure out that they're in this one. So it's a very handy thing, because it's taking the data that Google Forms has created and populating it here into this sheet.
Or if you have students in multiple grade levels that are submitting a Google form for a survey or whatever you're collecting information for, you can filter those by grade level. Let me see the sixth grade responses, the seventh grade responses, and so on.
Yep.
So super easy to filter out those. Before we go, I just want to show you where the functions are. We talked about auto sum and averaging and all of that in our last episode. In Google Sheets, you'll find that up here. It looks like the sum symbol. When I click on the sum symbol, that's what brings up all of those options and those different formulas that it can use to generate some additional data for you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So like Excel, it does have a lot of that like formulaic capacity there to like do some computing, some actual computing for you. Yeah, it's very cool.
All right, so we are going to move to Google Keep. This is a great place just to hold notes. You can share these with people. So Google Keep has notes, reminders, labels, archive, and trash. Very simple. If you take a note, you can give your note a title. And you can also create a checklist here. So if I go under the three dots on my note, I can go to show checkboxes, and I can put my list here. You can set reminders on here if you need a reminder about it. You can add collaborators. You can add people to your note. Great way to collaborate. You can change the colors, the pictures. You can add images. So if you're planning something and you need to add images in there, it's easy to do that. You can archive it so it doesn't show up in your notes section, but it still exists, which is nice. You can delete, add a label, so you can organize them to different categories, make copies. You can also copy it to a Google Docs. So you've put all your links in there, you've put your images in there, you've got everything you want, but now you want it like on an actual doc. It copies everything over.
And that is the only way that I used it when I was at school. That's the only way that I used Google Keep, is that like I would just get all of the information together in these little notes and then just drop it right into a document.
You can pin these, so if there's some that you need to get to quickly or you use all the time, you can pin it there. So up here we have some short new list, a new note with a drawing, or a new note with an image.
So that is Google Keep.
Yes.
Yep.
So we went to calendar.google.com to get to our calendar, and I don't know that everybody realizes how much you can actually do inside of your calendar. I mean, yes, it's great that you can add events. If you look, if you open your Google calendar and you look on the left hand side, you'll see a bunch of other calendars possibly.
Mhm.
You can subscribe to calendars. And you can turn those on and off. So if
Mhm.
it's not a calendar you need to see all the time, you can turn it on and off, view what you need to, and you can add stuff to multiple calendars.
Yeah.
So when you're in your Google Calendar, you'll see there's a plus sign. So you can create events, focus time, working locations, and appointment schedules, which is really handy. And at the top, you can go between the day view, week view, month view, depending on how you prefer to look at it. And if you do set up those schedules, you can look at just that schedule that you set up. So you can toggle between those different views. Under the settings option, so under that gear
The
box that
gear.
we talked about earlier with the
It's
flower,
not a flower.
if we click on settings, this is where you can view that particular calendar settings or your whole calendar settings. You can get notifications, set defaults.
Set rules.
Yeah, rules and defaults that you want to happen every time.
So a good a rule here would an example would be like, okay, so this one email address, whenever I get an email from this one email address, I want it to skip my inbox and I want it to go like right into archive or something like that. Like I want it, but I don't need to read it.
Yep.
So I can set up a
Filters,
rule.
rules,
Yep.
defaults.
Mhm.
I want all my events to default to an hour.
Mhm.
Those defaults don't have to stick. You can change those
Mhm.
on an as needed basis. At the very bottom of the settings, it's appointment schedules. You can create appointment schedules instead of appointment slots. The appointment slots in Google Calendar was not very friendly, not user friendly. The appointment schedules are way easier to set up, very user friendly. The only default to that is that I think the lowest amount of time you can set it is 15 minutes for each appointment. And I know a lot of schools like do 10-minute parent teacher conferences or conferences. So I really wish that they would change that to be more customizable. So we can kind of show you how that works. But if I go back into my calendar, so I just hit the back button, I do have the appointment schedules turned on. If you want to create an event, you can just click inside whatever date you're setting that event for. And I can click on more options and I can give that event or whatever I'm creating a name or a title. I can set the date. If it's an all day, you can leave it checked. You can also repeat these. So if you have a standing meeting every Monday at 9 o'clock, you can set that to repeat weekly. I can also uncheck this, which will bring up my time. So I can schedule it from a start time to an end time. Then I have my event details. So if I am meeting virtually on a Google Meet, I can put the link in there. I can do a location. I can do a notification, and you can set up multiple notifications. If you want to be notified a day ahead of time and 30 minutes before, this is where I can set it to different calendars and I can change the color. So each of my calendars could have a different color, or my events could have a different color. You can set it to be busy or free, default visibility. So there are actually privacy settings on your calendar where you can allow people to see what you're doing, or if it just says busy.
Correct.
Like you don't want them to know what you're doing, but that you're not available at that time. So then underneath that, we do have places to add attachments. You can add links in here. You can even create meeting notes. And you can give a further description. I know when I do my ed tech professional learning calendar, I always put the registration link in and I put when it's starting and ending and some additional information they might need. So it's handy to have that feature there. You can add guests here by putting in emails, and you can have guest permission. So you can allow them to modify the event, they can invite others, or they can see the guest list. So you have all of those settings that are in there. So we'll go ahead and discard that. It'll put it on your calendar for you. And then if I go under create, I can create an appointment schedule. So maybe we're going to do parent teacher conferences.
I think that's a really, really good example for how, like, man, that's a great use for this. Those parent teacher conferences, like, because then you can have it in that like kind of schedule view, and you know who you're seeing next. It's up like a list, you know. Yeah,
exactly. So the appointment duration, this is where it goes down to 15 minutes. So again, I'm hoping that sometime they will change that to 5 to 10 minutes. And then you can put if it's going to repeat or not, what days. So if you have your conferences on Tuesday from, let's say, 9 to 5, and then I can add a date and maybe we're going to do an evening session. So you'll notice on the side that it's now creating those spots where people are going to sign up at. We can do a scheduling window, a booking appointment settings, and then calendars check for availability. If you need to check it amongst multiple calendars, you can do that too. And then color, you can change the color and then click next. Here you can add a description, you can add a location, you can even do a booking form. So if you want to add, I need your first name, your last name, I need your email address, those are required.
Yeah.
But if you need to say, is there something in particular you want to talk about at this conference, you can insert that question and you'll be able to see it before that meeting comes up so you know what you're addressing. And then booking confirmations and reminders, so that can be set up too. So I'm going to go ahead and click save. Now, the best part about this is once it's set up, I can open this booking page and it's going to show me those slots. And as those slots are taken up, they're going to disappear from my scheduling calendar.
They're not available anymore.
They're not available. And it's super easy to share this out. I just share it with a link, a single booking page, parent-teacher conferences, and there's the link that I'm going to send to my parents. They get it, they sign up, they put in the required information, and it automatically goes onto my calendar.
Yeah.
So if I am in my calendar, I can go up to month, I can go up to schedule, and as they're signing up for those, they're going to appear here. I don't have anybody signed up right now, so it's not going to show, but it would show if they were there. So there's my parent-teacher conference days.
Yeah, and again, I mean, it's so user-friendly because I've got the list of these names, and I can click on that one, and if that parent has given me some input that, I need to focus on and stuff, it's right there. It's very clickable.
And it's a great way for administration. If they have like open office hours, parents can sign up or teachers can sign up, or they can have a booking, the slots that people can sign up for.
Yeah.
So
I'm really
it's handy.
I'm glad, Betsy, that you highlighted that one because I think, again, the example of the parent-teacher conference and like anything that we do have, like, okay, from this hour to this hour, I'm going to be available, come and sign up, and here's the link to sign up and that kind of thing. Yep.
And then just to wrap this up, so if I go to the left to one of my calendars, I can go to settings and sharing, and this is where I can actually share my calendar with somebody else. So that's also helpful for planning purposes or, various things. So hopefully you found something in there that you can use or that you didn't know before. And if you have any questions, you can let us know.
Please do ask. Thanks again for joining us for today's MC Tech Talk. We explored Google apps such as the Chrome browser, Docs, Slides, Sheets, Keep, and Calendar. So check out the show notes in the description below for an outline of today's topics.
And don't forget to join us next time to learn more about all things Canva. Thank you for listening to this episode of MC Tech Talk with Betsy and Kit. If you would like to ask any questions about anything from today's episode, click the link in the description to fill out the Google form.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check back next month for our next episode of MC Tech Talk. You can find our flyer for future episodes linked in the show notes below.
Thanks again. We'll see you next time.